Hello, everyone, and welcome to an all-new season of Mountain Lake Journal. I'm Tom Howick. The new year will bring the end of an era here in Plattsburgh, where this coming week, the city's police chief is retiring.
Before I was a police officer, I was a kid dreaming about being a police officer.
After joining the force at the age of 20, Desmond Racicot has been with the department now for 27 years as a patrolman, detective, and for the past 14 years as chief of police, making him one of the longest serving in the city's history. As chief, he led a team from the city that was part of the massive 3-week manhunt that tracked down and captured the 2 escaped killers who broke out of the maximum security prison in Dannemora a year and a half ago. Within the past month, Racicot was recruited and hired by tech giant Cisco Systems to be a senior advisor on public safety.
The nice part about it is that it's not that I'm retiring from the police department and I'm going to be doing another occupation that has nothing to do with law enforcement. I'm being hired by a company to work in law enforcement and military aspects to deal with technology and how that will help shape the future for law enforcement, which is great.
In recent years, Racicot has worked with law enforcement colleagues and community leaders fighting the opioid and heroin epidemic that has gripped many communities, including Plattsburgh. The chief talked about it in depth when he sat down with us a few weeks ago. And with us now is Desmond Racicot, Chief of Police in the city of Plattsburgh. Welcome, nice to have you.
Thank you, it's nice to be here.
Like many communities across New York and New England, really much of the country, the city of Plattsburgh is in the grips of a heroin epidemic.
It's unbelievable. Plattsburgh doesn't have an invisible shield around it. The city of Plattsburgh, the town of Plattsburgh, all the surrounding areas, they're not protected with some kind of corporate boundary bubble that stops. So what happens in the city of Plattsburgh is certainly affecting outside the city of Plattsburgh and vice versa.
And in recent years, the city has seen a significant increase in fatal overdoses.
But the entire area, the entire Troop B of the New York State Police have seen this tremendous increase in heroin use, opioid addiction, which result in death, overdose and death. The city of Plattsburgh is in the exact same position. Like I said, it's not like it's more inside the city and less outside the city. It's everywhere in this area, and it's a very serious epidemic.
Stats aren't out for 2016 yet, but for the 5 years, 2010 to 2015, State Police A in Troop B, which covers Clinton, Essex, Franklin, and St. Lawrence counties, they saw 72 fatal overdoses in those 5 years.
And that's not including our numbers.
That's not including the city of Plattsburgh numbers. How many deaths have you had in that time period?
In the last several years, there've been dozens. 4 or 5 years ago, we would do seizures, and it's kind of difficult. I'll use some street language. Heroin is packaged in a couple different ways, but one of the most popular ways is that it's a small packet, usually a little bit less than 1/10 of a gram, called a bindle. 10 of those together make a bundle. So we were buying heroin around $50 a bindle. Now the number has lowered to $30 a bindle. So it's 1/10 of a gram, and sometimes even a little bit cheaper, but it varies. And when the price is going down, that's telling you that there's more of it. We used to do seizures. We'd get a person transporting or trying to sell 40 bags, 50 bags. We're getting so much heroin, it's frightening. It's frightening to think that much heroin is being used in our community. But it's nothing for me to talk to somebody and say they're doing 20, 30 bags of heroin a day. Now, you're talking, a couple $100 a day, you're in the 200,000 mark, in a year. Now, granted, they don't get heroin every single day because they can't either get it because it's all sold out and it's not available, but that's almost not the case. Usually the case is they don't have the money to get it. So you see their lives start up here and slowly start to deteriorate. They basically lose all their money. They lose their jobs. They start stealing from family. They start stealing from friends. Then they can't get the heroin. Then they start breaking into homes and apartments looking for prescription pills. Then they start stealing property from stores, stealing from cars, stealing from homes. I mean, we have burglaries and robberies all too frequently the vast majority of them are all drug related. Somebody that has some type of addiction is looking for merchandise to sell, to trade for heroin.
Or looking for cash, breaking into cars and
Absolutely.
wherever they can get it.
And something else too that's extremely disturbing is that you'll find out people are doing sex for drugs, prostitution. Now, prostitution, people tend to think, well, there's this person on a corner soliciting people driving by. It's not that type of prostitution. What ends up happening is these people in these circle of abusers end up selling themselves to get access to drugs or money. It's terrible.
And we've heard of that happening elsewhere, and in Vermont it's happening here as well?
Happening right here in Plattsburgh.
How widespread?
Every day. Every day.
You're going after the heroin dealers who are bringing in those hundreds or thousands of bindles and bundles to sell in the community. On the other hand, you understand that many of the addicts, and I think many law enforcement officers, chiefs like yourself, will say this isn't something that you can arrest your way out of, and that they're identifying the addiction as a health crisis to deal with, while at the same time law enforcement is still going after the dealers.
First and foremost, this is a health crisis. The stigma associated with a drug addiction is almost like the stigma when we had people with suicide. There wasn't a lot of conversation about that. It was kind of like hushed in families, and certainly we'd find family members would have somebody who had a drug addiction. There was a lot of hush. Not the case. This is mental health. These are health issues. These people are everyday people. This could be you or me. This could be our family members, the Pope, the President. I don't care who you are. If you're using those opioids, there's a chance that that you could become addicted and abuse them. And it's a very slippery slope. They're very, very powerful drugs. Now, here's the thing. It's a catchphrase to say that we can't arrest ourselves out of this problem. Mm-hmm. But what I do tell people is that you may hear a story once in a while. Someone woke up today and said, I can't live like this anymore. I got to go get treatment, get some kind of interdiction, do it all by themselves. But I almost never hear that. I mean, that's kind of like a diamond in the rough. Usually, it's some type of crisis, a family member interdiction, a medical interdiction, a law enforcement interdiction, something that gets that person to I've hit rock. They know they're on rock bottom. Mm-hmm. I mean, they know. The people that are involved in these addictions see themselves spiraling out of control. But it's just that. It's out of control. And the addiction is so powerful, and the withdrawal is so powerful. It's just unbelievable. Those people need the drugs, need the heroin, need those opioids. So it's the worst they've ever felt. There's all kinds of experts that are talking about, you take the worst you've ever felt, take the worst flu, take the worst cold, take breaking bones, and times that by 10, and that's what these people are going through. Then you could just take a little powder, snort it, shoot it, and all the pain goes away. Well, that's what happens. So they get into the detox. So our role in law enforcement, obviously, is to enforce the laws, and these are crimes. But we also know that if we can get people into these drug treatment facilities, and they get interdiction, they get through detox, they get inpatient, outpatient, and this continues. If that was successful, all those crimes associated are going to go down. And if we don't, they're going to go up. Our job is to make it difficult for them to get heroin. We want them to be at a place where they're like, I can't get the heroin, I can't get the opioids, I'm sick. And then for family and friends and community and medical to collaboratively get together and get these people into these detox facilities, there's probably a lot of failure rate at this. And recently we had this expert come in and talk about the brain addiction that was held at the Strand. And one of the things he talked about, which was a great way to say it, is that it's practice. If they get in and they fail, we get them back in, and there's a chance that we're going to win. We don't toss the people aside. And it's not seedy. These aren't low-life, bad people. This is not a disease that discriminates. It gets everybody. The recent focus that the Press Republican did about the heroin deaths was a really great wake-up call for our community. I mean, that paper reaches a lot of people, and it put a face on the heroin problem and try to remove that stigma associated with it. I said to them that if there was some kind of type of audible alarm that went off every time someone became addicted to the opioids, no one would sleep at night. It'd be too noisy. There's, we're talking about the death. The death is the tragic end to that awful journey. But when you're talking about the state police have 70 and we have a couple dozen deaths, when you talk to these heroin addicts and they start telling you how many heroin users they know, the number's staggering. I remember first talking to them, like one person was rattling off probably 30 names from one person. I was like, and they know people who know people that are using, the heroin. I had a person that was arrested telling me that they were buying heroin for $15 a bundle. And I talked to one of my narcotics detectives. He says, no way. No. I'm like, $15. If the price gets dropped down like that, that means there's way too much heroin. And it's very profitable. What we've talked about in the past is that people would buy heroin, that same dose of heroin would be $3 to $5 down in New York City, and come up here and sell it for $30 to $50 up here. So it took those bad guys were coming up here and making a fortune. They didn't care that they were, introducing it to, people that would eventually become addicted to it. All these crimes associated with it, destroy their lives, destroy their families' lives, wreck the community. It's a cancer. It grows at an abnormal rate. That's what it is. It is an abnormal growth.
Is there enough treatment available? We know that a detox unit is going to be opening at the old youth center in Schuyler Falls hopefully within the next year. Are there enough treatment options for people in the city of Plattsburgh in the North Country, or is that part of the problem that they can't immediately get into treatment to get them on the road to recovery?
In my experience, no. We have dealt with people that we've tried to get them into facilities and we could not find them beds. My opinion, I would say we need to put the vast majority of our resources into treatment facilities, counseling, because getting them away from the drug doesn't resolve the problem, right? All those other things are associated with the drug user, the drug addiction, the chemical dependency has to be dealt with over here. My job is not to arrest people so they can be incarcerated, because that doesn't cure the problem. It doesn't even address the problem. It just kind of gives this illusion that something's being done. It's just squeezing a water balloon and having it just pop out somewhere else. If we don't collaborate and come to some kind of understanding that the medical side of this and the treatment side of this is the most important side, it's kind of a moot point. I think if there were a bunch of facilities, beds, trained professionals, medical professionals, the counselors, if we could get all those people that have the addiction to those people, there is going to be some success initially, and there are going to be some failures initially, and then the people that succeed, we hope they continue to succeed year after year after year until they live a happy life and no more problems with the addiction. And those that fail and get back into the abuse and the addiction, we hope to get them back in. Eventually, we will try to pull them out. Now, if a person stays in this with no intervention, they're eventually going to die. It's just a matter of time. It's a matter of time before their body gives out or they get a bad load, and they're going to overdose and die. It's inevitable. We know we have issues with insurance companies. We know we have issues with the number of beds available, the number of resources for people with the right education, the right medical training to help these people get through the detox and work. Because it's something that they continue every single day for the rest of their lives to work the program to stay drug-free. That's the way, okay? That's the way we're going to have the biggest impact.
Are you seeing signs where we're making progress? Or is it too early in the battle?
That's a really tough question. Are we making progress? Not enough.